countries in the world as complex systems, the interconnected global system presents complex systemic challenges. The NDP notes that neither governments nor the relevant international institutions are set up to monitor or assess the risk of systemic contagion or to deal with systemic failure. Now, this is an interesting one because there's been research on that, and there's been the development of systems to study complex systems and to monitor them. I know the CSR has done some work on that, and it might be elsewhere as well. But I think most of us know very little about that. I don't know, I might be wrong. But it certainly isn't common knowledge among people that you can actually deal with complex systems. You don't have to throw up your hands in despair and say we can't monitor it. The global impact of the financial crisis of 2008 and 2009 showed governments' failure to regulate and prevent systemic collapse. This is one example of a complex system whose workings are not fully understood. Other existing complex systems challenges include climate change, population pressures, urbanization, and rising consumption and waste. There are also potential systemic crises such as cyber attacks on financial markets, electricity supplies, transport, etc. We have addressed aspects of these in our various discussion forums. So cybersecurity has been a particular focus, and issues involved in climate change have also received some attention. We looked at the skills drought in the water sector last year, and we looked at sustainable tourism and touched on climate change, the impact of climate change on that as well. Economic globalization has outpaced political globalization. In most countries, the public sector is locked into an outdated national model that isn't able to tackle global challenges. Treaties and conventions take too long to negotiate, are often not ratified, and when they are rarely enforced. Big governmental conferences are long on declarations and short on implementation. Both governments and companies will need to adapt continuously as they address the risks and opportunities of the evolving global environment. So it's all there, actually. It points to very serious challenges, and it points to what needs to be done. So you need the national model to actually be revamped. The public sector is not doing what it's supposed to do, and it's not very well conceived. It's inherited. Reviewing economic policies, the NDP calls for efficient market policies that embrace principles of social justice, empowerment, and a balance between rights and responsibilities. I suppose that's part of radical economic transformation. At the same time, taking country-specific factors and global context into account. Emerging markets have been increasing their contributions to global growth, while developed markets decrease their contribution. This is driven by better education and economic management, and greater openness to international trade. There are also demographic shifts, such as declining birth rates and urbanization, urban migration. You find with urbanization, the birth rates decline as well. It's basically, as I understand it, it is as women are empowered. So then they take decisions about their own lives, and they decide just to have 1 or 2 children or no children at all. And so you have a stabilization of the population. The expected global economic rebalancing depends on emerging market companies maintaining 2011 growth trends. This is not a given, and in fact it hasn't happened, and will depend largely on policy. It also means wider and deeper investment in education and skills training. And I love it that the NDP stresses that, education and skills training, that really is key to our development. Then there are opportunities in Africa. Minerals underpin the economic strength of many African countries. However, most African countries have not used their commodity wealth to reduce poverty. part of that is that the commodity wealth is also taken overseas. Africa has the world's youngest population, but there's a need for education, skills, and programs around job creation and entrepreneurship. Urbanization reduces the number of people involved in small-scale agriculture and facilitates economic diversification. Employment and urbanization significantly increase consumer spending. This has particular implications for consumer-facing industries, agriculture, resources, and infrastructure. Now, we've had some addressing of the agriculture issues in NSTF forums. Last year, we celebrated the International Year of Pulses, and these are dried beans. And so we looked at food security and agriculture and the contribution of agriculture to the economy and the well-being of people, and concluded that it was key. However, South Africa has something like 2% of the economy is agriculture. Matala, is that right? It is a tiny percentage, whereas if you look at the rest of Africa, they have a huge percentage of agriculture as part of their economies. Now, on the one hand, that means that they are resource dependent. Agriculture is not that reliable in terms of generating income for a country, and in that sense, we're lucky. On the other hand, we're not taking advantage of agriculture as a way of feeding our people and a way of beneficiating our natural resources. In the sustainable tourism discussion, we spoke about agritourism. It's one way in which farmers or owners of land can actually increase their income. They need to work together, of course, to do that, and they need to be innovative and look at the market. But there is potential for that. Right. With the explosion of cell phone use and related demand for the internet, there is a need for better connectivity and a need to harness technological opportunity. Africa has massive infrastructure deficit. At the same time, poor infrastructure and tough market conditions have forced innovative business models, for example, M-Pesa. Access to electricity is limited, and electricity is a prerequisite for development. Renewable energy sources are increasingly important, with sub-Saharan Africa well positioned to develop solar and hydro energy and to produce biofuels. Now, we've been slowed down on that trajectory of developing renewable energy. There are a lot of wonderful initiatives, and Eskom actually at one stage bought into that and was willing to support independent power producers. And it's still going ahead apparently, but it's crawling now. It's not happening as fast as it should.